So today we are talking all about Lego Bricklink, which is, I feel like it's a passage point in your craziness with Lego and your fandom of Lego. At some point you hear about Bricklink and you're like, oh my god, this is amazing. Hello, bricks, chicks, and minifigures. You are listening to AFOLs Welcome, where we talk about all things Lego from the perspective of two adult collectors. We're your co-host. I'm Grinch.
And I'm West.
And today we will be talking about Bricklink. But before we get to Bricklink, we got some exciting Lego news.
Exciting Lego news.
West, why don't you hit us with some of these reveals? We had a lot of action this week.
We got some action this week on some reveals. There was some interesting reveals with the Icons line. We got the Lambo Countach that finally got revealed. It's been rumored this year as the big car for the year, but we finally got pictures of that, images. It looks wonderful. We also got the trailer, I believe, the official Lego trailer for Lego Horizon Forbidden West, which is exciting. There were leaked images of Bumblebee and the Bumblebee set that got revealed. And then we finally got some more information about a few more city jungle sets, including this interesting new piece that we are labeling the Smart Brick. And that got revealed as well. Grinch, I think there were some rumors too. What did you see?
Yeah, so rumor on the new Mario large set, or I didn't want to call it direct to consumer because I believe you can get them at Target now, but I think these typically start as like a D2C, but like a larger scale Mario set. The rumor is it'll be Mario riding Yoshi in like an 8-bit style, which could be interesting depending on how it's executed. And then all we got is another dual pack of brickheads, this time for Captain America 4, New World Order. That's all we got in there. I assume it's probably Falcon slash New Captain America, and maybe the Winter
Red
Soldier if
Hulk.
he's in it, but I'm not sure. What was that, Wes?
Yeah, I think Red Hulk. I think Red Hulk is supposed to be
Oh, did
in the
they
movie.
did did they did you see, like, did you find more information on if who is going to be in the pack, or likely Cap and Red Hulk. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That'll be good. I mean, we got Captain America, um, the original Captain America, so that at least we're getting Sam
Hmm.
Wilson's Captain America now, so that'll be interesting. A lot of red, white, and blue color on that too, which will certainly be good for a brickhead. I wonder too, it'd be cool if they did wings, right? If they kept his Falcon wings as something that
Yeah.
kind of it would just add some diversity to brickheads, right? Because you could just get so many just regular costume brickheads. It'd be cool to have like some brickhead with some wings or something a little bit different to kind of pull your eye on the shelf.
I almost feel like you would have to, or like some sort of backpack attachment, like the jetpacks from the
Yeah,
Mandalorian ones. So,
sure.
but
So, was there any
well,
other reveals that you wanted to talk about? I know you like your cars.
that's very true. The Lambo Countach is very exciting. I haven't seen the inside. Of note, it does look like it's built in a similar style to the Porsche, where the front fenders were a little smaller and the back fenders are a little more pronounced, and that does follow the car as well.
Mhm.
It's interesting if you look, some people were doing side by side comparisons with this and the Speed Champions set. And I've always been a fan of the Speed Champions set because I thought they really nailed that look in that size for that vehicle. But you really do see kind of at the larger scale just how much more detail they can pack in there, and just I would hate to say it's better, but it certainly looks, I think, a lot more
Yeah,
accurate to the actual vehicle.
sure.
And so that's just really exciting to see. Did we get a price on that yet? I
Yeah,
would
I
imagine
remember the
somewhere in the
price was a little
mid
more.
100s.
Yeah, just give me 2 seconds. I remember seeing
While
it
you
being
talk about
like,
that,
why? Oh no, yeah. Okay, 180,
yeah. So that's not terrible.
1,500 pieces. But I think some of it is there's the back wheel, and it's
Yeah,
hard to tell if it's two wheels or if it's one custom made wheel, which could be an expensive piece for them to produce. And it also looks like it's that single wind, the wide windscreen that's tapered right at towards the top. It is more of a trapezoid. So there definitely is some unique pieces in here as well.
yeah. It does look like I'm looking at an image
The
of this
wheels,
set. It does look like they did two wheels in the back. So they do have a new custom rim piece for the set, which is exciting.
is that what it
It
is?
does look like,
Okay,
yeah,
custom
so there's a
rim.
custom wheel piece. I would assume. I haven't seen it before. And then, yeah, there's definitely, it looks like two wheels based on the ridges on the wheel itself. So,
What I think will
which
be
which would make
super
sense.
interesting is that the doors fold up,
Yeah.
and it just, I mean, that's got to be some wild building techniques. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and I think well, I think with the air scoop on the side, it's not going to be as wild as we think it is because
Mm,
I actually think that looking at it provides a really nice flexible hinge point for the pieces so that they're not like putting pressure on each other, which is always kind of a challenge with these doors. What is interesting is you see the A pillars on this vehicle built out, and that's something that some of these vehicles haven't done in the past. And so, just for the viewers who are not as familiar with cars, the A pillar is that piece of metal that surrounds the windshield on your vehicle. It's specifically the piece that runs up the side of the windshield that from the front kind of frames it, and on the side is sort of that first metal piece that some cars, some very expensive cars, kind of get away with some like I'm thinking of some Koenigsegg's that have like these really weird sweeping windscreens, but most cars use those, and they're for structural support on the roof. But Lego has traditionally in the past not included those on some of their designs. So if you look at like their old pickup and I think the Ford Mustang, I think there was a sticker for that. And a lot of people have critiqued the Speed Champion series for not depicting that. And that was one of the reasons why I thought the Mercedes set this summer was not legit, was because they haven't really designed A pillars like that in the past.
mhm.
So to see Lego put that not only here in the Mercedes but also now in the Countach is definitely they're upping their game on representation of these forms. Now, obviously, they still don't have windows, and that's or side windows to be expected. I think that would be incredibly difficult to create, or you'd have to more or less create a custom piece for that, which I think would just be a little over the top. But the model does look fantastic. The new dark black, transparent dark black, or transparent black piece really lends itself extremely well to Lego. Just all of this, you know what I mean? Like the older dark transparent brown or the older
Mhm.
transparent black, just it did have that kind of brownish tint. This just looks really, really clean and exciting. And this is one of those cars that's just iconic. And I know I've talked way too long about this. So
Uh,
what I will say, switching over to other cars, is the Bumblebee news is interesting. Any Transformer is kind of neat to see in Lego. Not a personally a huge fan of the Volkswagen Beetles, but it's exciting to see them continue this Transformer line
mhm.
with new versions of Bumblebee. So I'll leave that there. Grinch, was there anything for you that was really exciting?
Um, I'm probably not gonna play Lego Horizon Adventures. Um, I was interested to see what direction they went with it, but it looks like it's maybe that old Telltale game, not Telltale games. What is it? TT games. That Lego, like it looks like it.
Is it like the tiny tower?
No. Just like the regular like Lego Star Wars TT games, I think is who made that, right? Um,
I don't remember.
but so it looks like that similar style to like the Force Awakens, or sorry, the Skywalker Saga. Lego game that they
Hmm.
came out with a few years ago. So I was curious to see how they would do if it was more third person or more like the traditional Lego games that we've seen. It looks like it's leaning more towards that traditional Lego game, but there's some cool parts of the trailer. Like at one point, she pulls out a brick separator and uses it as a weapon, which I thought was kind of funny. It's just that like on the nose Lego humor. Um, but my time is just you know so valuable to me at this point that I
Yeah.
don't play as many video games as I'd want to. I'm currently playing Ghost of Tsushima because I just watched Shogun, and so I wanted to continue that samurai fix. But I just don't have that time to dedicate to games like I used to. So this will probably be a pass for me, but maybe we'll get more Horizon Zero Dawn
Yeah.
sets or Forbidden West sets or something, which would be cool. Maybe I'll go back and actually replay the original Horizon game. But um, I think that about wraps it up for the Lego news.
Well,
Or did you want to
yeah,
talk
I'll
about the
just
smart brick?
add. Nope, I didn't,
What did you want to add?
because that's how I feel about it. I wanted to comment on the Lego Horizon West. I Those games are always fun, so it'll be curious to see what devices or systems it comes out on.
PS5
Um,
and Xbox
okay, have they
and
announced
PC.
anything like Wii or anything like that?
No,
Not Wii,
Switch.
Switch.
I didn't see it, but it could have been.
That's a bummer. That would be cool because I think I'd play that maybe. But yeah, you mentioned, and we are kind of a podcast for adult fans of Lego, that you don't have a ton of time anymore. And yeah, I don't either. Most of my free time is actually working on this with you, and right now trying to move my Lego collection and the rest of my house. So it's on one of those things, unfortunately, as adults, where you just like have to kind of give up some of those things that you used to, fill your free time with. So I hear you. It looks exciting, and certainly that type of humor that those games bring to the table is always fun to see. So, but I would agree if we get more sets from Horizon Zero Dawn or Forbidden West out of this, it would be very exciting. Those are very fun. I really like the tall neck set. It just the IP for that series is really interesting, so it's fun to see them put all that together. I will add, going back to the Lamborghini real quick, I'm looking at a rear picture of it from the brickfan.com,
Mhm.
and it's not two tires. It is,
It's
but
on
the inner
one.
one is
It's
is
on.
thinner,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it's almost like a tire and a half,
Yeah.
which would make sense because I think they did have bigger rear tires. So, anyways, I just thought that was kind of interesting and neat to see. In fact, it looks like the front tire is the thinner tire, and the rear tire is almost
The
maybe
fat
even not one and a
Edison.
half. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. It looks like the details in this are going to be great. I haven't bought. I bought the Mustang. I haven't bought anything since then.
You got the
I might
pickup.
buy this one. I did, that was a gift, but yeah, I do have the pickup. I might end up getting the Countach. It's just such a cool car.
Dude,
This is
the curvature and the shaping on this thing is absolute. Like I was looking at the doors closer, and like the door
yeah.
itself, it starts on one angle, and then it's like the door is built at an angle to fit into the
When they use
car. So it's
those
like the
rounded
door's
clip
3 bricks
pieces,
wide. Yeah.
yeah, it is just fascinating to see. I Lego sculpting these days has just gotten so good, and the pieces now continue to get better and better. Like there's that new wedge piece that just came out. I can see a few places where it's being used in the model to just really great effect.
Yeah.
That's the 1x2 with the corner taken out of it that was introduced in Speed Champions this year. So just exciting to see all of that. It looks like there's a new macaroni tile too, or macaroni brick that was introduced. A one looks like a 3x3 instead of the 4x4. A sloped macaroni on the back of the wheel well arch there. So yeah, just fun stuff. Anyways, what a great
I
time
think
to be a
that piece
Lego
has been
fan.
out for a little bit
So,
now. It's not brand new.
and if not that one, maybe the 4x4 is new. I don't know.
Oh yeah, maybe the
I have
three
to
by
take a
three
look
or
at
the four
that.
by four is one of them. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, two
So
things. I stand corrected on Lego Horizon Adventures. That's the official name of the Horizon Forbidden West game. It is not
okay,
out on Xbox, and it is out on
oh
Switch and PC, which people are losing their mind about because Horizon was a PlayStation exclusive and it's made by PlayStation Studios. So people are like, why is it on the Switch? It should be PlayStation exclusive. Um, don't know. Don't really care, even though I am a PS5 person. Like, if I'm a PlayStation person, I probably should care, but I really don't have energy to care right now about it. So, um, yeah, it is out on the Switch. So you will play it then.
is is the Switch getting replaced sometime soon?
Yeah, isn't
Is
the
that a rumor that's
yeah yeah they're coming out the new one in like a year. I don't know the exact date.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Well, this isn't a podcast about Nintendo, so let's keep
it's
let's get back on track.
like 2025 for Christmas. It's like Switch 2 or something like that.
Uh,
Yeah, so last thing, since I mentioned it, the smart brick, whoop-de-doo, another gimmick brick. It lights up and makes noises. I don't know. I like Lego.
let's let's push this one to the listeners. Grant Grinch and I had talked about creating a episode on gimmicks, and this one I think solidly falls in that
This
category.
was the
So,
inspiration for that.
well, I don't know if this was the inspiration, but I know we had talked about that in the past.
True,
So,
true.
but we were thinking about doing that for this episode. But I would like to ask the listeners, what is your favorite Lego gimmick, and then what is like the dumbest Lego gimmick you think you've seen? And we'll
And
talk
by
about it
gimmicks,
because
you're talking about like non-Lego Lego bricks, right? Like the sound brick, the light brick, this new smart brick, um,
yeah, like the little hopper brick thing that would
the
break the
super
legs.
jumper that broke legs. Yeah.
I'll even include stud shooters, flick fire, and the larger missiles or any of the firing
Hmm.
devices as a gimmick. Um, the net shooters from the cities waves a few
Oh, and
years
Jurassic Park.
ago. There was a few of them in Jurassic Park. Oh, like the twist
Yeah,
up helicopter
the net shooter.
blades.
Yeah.
There was a ton of them, dude. There's a lot. So
All right. Well, that is what we have for the news. So, listeners, please provide your feedback on your favorite Lego gimmick brick. But let's go
yeah,
ahead and move over to the main topic.
Today's topic.
So today we are talking all about Lego Bricklink, which is, I feel like it's a passage point in your craziness with Lego and your fandom of Lego. At some point, you hear about Bricklink and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. So today we're just going to kind of review Bricklink. If you've never heard of Bricklink, well, you're in luck. You're about to learn a lot. If you have heard of Bricklink, I'd encourage you to keep listening because um, I have a ton of experience as a buyer and a seller on Bricklink. So hopefully you learn something new about Bricklink. And we're just going to kind of talk about what it is, some of the pros, some of the cons, different aspects of Bricklink, and then other options that are in the market and kind of how it compares. So Bricklink is a platform, it's a website where you can buy and sell used, new, you used to be able to sell custom Lego. Actually, you can still sell custom, you can't sell non Lego on it anymore. Lego bought Bricklink in 2019 from the Jezik family. Daniel Jezik was the original inventor who unfortunately passed away when he was 33 back in 2010. And I believe it was his mother that continued running Bricklink. And then in 2019, she actually ended up selling it to the Lego group. And now Lego owns it, which I guess totally makes sense because it's just this huge data mine of information because literally everything's, I mean, they can find out like what retired themes are more popular because based off of what people are clicking on, right? What are people willing to pay for I mean, it's just a data minefield of information about Lego, right? And so Yeah, unfortunately, he passed away. He actually first called it Brick Bay, which is kind of a fun fact because he was inspired by eBay, and then eBay sued him to make him change the name, so he had to end up changing the name to Bricklink. So then
Oh, they got
Bricklink
him.
was born. Yeah, ooh, ooh. Which is funny because it's such a better place to buy Lego than eBay. So you can buy used sets, you can buy new sets that are sealed, that are just complete. You can buy individual pieces. If you need 5,000 clones, this is where you get it. The Bricklink is where you get all of your stuff. Well, for mocks, not all of it, but it's a really, really good source of individual pieces. If you just need an instruction booklet or a box or, I mean, what have you, if Lego has produced it, it is on Bricklink. So, for example, if you, I don't know, bought the Pirates of the Caribbean sets and they came with the little trading cards and you lost one and all of a sudden you're like, I really want one of those. Guess what? That's under gear on Bricklink. So they have everything that Lego has pretty much ever, I mean, everything's cataloged on here that Lego's ever produced. And I mean, 98, 99% of the time, there's somebody selling it on Bricklink. Every once in a while, you run across some deep, deep, deep hit catalog entry that nobody has anything for sale of. But you can still see the history of selling price, etc. So there's just so much information here. So let's dive just head first into it. West, why don't you share your history, your experience with Bricklink, and then I'll share mine.
Yeah, so I'm a pretty casual Bricklink user, and I say that I do have some extended history with Bricklink, but um, I am exclusively a buyer on Bricklink. I don't sell, and I've been using it since maybe 2020, 2021, and it was actually you who introduced me to Bricklink, Grinch. So
I sure
I
did.
appreciate that. It's been a fun time. I primarily use it to just buy pieces to complete sets. The first time I really took a dive into it was to buy pieces to complete my Lego Santa Fe collection, specifically pieces to remake some of the cars in a to redesign some of them, because when I bought them, I bought the car, but I didn't get the extra pieces that came with the cars to redesign them into another type
Mm-hmm.
of car. And so in my collection, I have one of every single car built, which was sort of the point. And so I needed some extra pieces. And from there, what's really cool is you can start diving into things like colors and piece designs and changes. And so, for example, in the Santa Fe piece, there was a kind of a bracket piece, a 1 by 2 by 4, and it has since been redesigned with reinforced with plastic on the inside. And the older ones were the ones that came in the original Santa Fe set, and so getting those was a little bit more expensive. And in fact, I think I bought them just to have them, but then put the newer ones into the set just because they were reinforced and stronger. But what was great about that too was like I could buy the older gray, so that was exciting to see. Since then, I've used it to complete some mocks. Well, maybe not mocks. I've rebuilt and parted out the detective's office and brick bank, which was exciting. It was a very expensive
Can you explain what
project.
what parting out is?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the cool features on Bricklink is you can take a set that you want. For example, let's say the brick bank, and I can say, hey, there's an option to part out this set. And so you create a wanted list of every single part that's in the set. And so whether you're just inventorying your own set to ensure
Mm-hmm.
that you have everything there, or you are trying to, like I did, uh, build a brick bank from scratch, you can use that tool to then create an inventory system. And so then what I did personally was I looked through my own collection for everything that I had, and then started crossing things
Yeah.
off the list, and then went and purchased everything else through Brickvault or Bricklink. And you can do that. You don't have to use your own collection. You can just go and say, "Hey, purchase all of this right now," And so the system's really smart, and it'll kind of create different carts and lots for you. And there's a degree of optimization to try to make it so that you're not, you can kind of say like, I want it all from the United States, or I want it all from U.S. and Canada, or I don't care where it's from.
Hmm.
You can say what type of condition you want the pieces in, and then it'll start building out the carts for you. So that's kind of a neat feature on Bricklink. I've done that a couple of times with a couple of modular buildings. That's probably a discussion for our modular building episode, so I'll leave that there. But that's mostly what I've used Bricklink for.
So to go
For
back to the parting out real quick, the advantage of parting out is that if you have your own collection of pieces that you're not using, right? You can
Mhm.
potentially say, "Oh, I want to go build the brick bank, and I'm going to save $50 on pieces because I already have a bunch of 1x6s and the base plate,
Yeah,
and that's 500 pieces in total of the 2,000 pieces that you need, and then
exactly.
potentially you're also saving money because the one by or the 1x2x2 window piece in sand green. I know the brick bank uses a lot of those, and
Hmm.
recently it was quite rare. I mean, there's like three or four sets that came out with it, but the brick bank is by far the one that came out the most because that one had like 36 of them or something, and every other set that came out with them had one or two. So there's not a lot of those pieces out there, but they recently released the Botanical Garden in France that had like another 36 of them. So therefore, there's more pieces in the marketplace. So, one thing that you can try to do sometimes, not all the time, sometimes is you can save money by trying to part it out so that you're just buying individual pieces from a seller to complete all the pieces that you need from the set. The thing you have to watch
Yep.
out for is, you are paying for shipping. So, if you're buying from 10 different people, that can be $50 of shipping right there if you
Yeah.
assume each order is going to be like $5 or something. So,
Yeah, no, it does. The costs do add up, and so I'll just put a bow on my experience with the modular buildings, which was I found that I probably would have just saved money, or spent just as much money as had I bought it in used but new condition, if that makes
mhm.
sense. Used complete, but like new condition. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if that's the best way to go for our listeners, if that's something they're interested in trying, but you can always try it. And I think on smaller sets, you'll probably end up saving money if you do that combination. But I've also used Bricklink to, for example, complete a collection with retired sets. And Grinch, I know you've done the same. So for me, I think I bought 3 or 4 Rogue One sets off of
Hmm.
Bricklink just so that I could complete my Rogue One collection, but then also, ensure that I had all of those sets. So, which is nice because, like you said, you can buy them in any state of completion, which is kind of cool to see. So,
Yeah.
and you'll pay good money for it too, though. So if you want it new in box sealed, you're paying, significant price for that sometimes.
Sure. Sure. Um, so I think one of the takeaways of the whole part out part of the conversation is that it's probably worth it if you have a collection of pieces already, but if you're just trying to complete a set and you have no pieces, just proceed with caution. It's not always cheaper just because it was cheaper two times, right? Um,
Yeah.
all right. So my experience with Bricklink, gosh, where do I start? I've got an embarrassing number of transactions on Bricklink. I'm talking like more than 400. I'm not going to say the exact number because it's more embarrassing than that. I've been using Bricklink since 2017, and I really started using it because it's a really good place to get minifigures, right? And when I
Hmm.
first started to get back into Lego, I was collecting Marvel, and I had missed, the first couple initial waves of Marvel, so I was using this to just get the minifigures, and that's where my love of Bricklink started. And then I kind of just started setting up all these wanted lists of like everything, and I've used it to acquire quite a few retired sets, instructions, you name it. I'm using it less and less as I've really curated my collection and kind of have started to like you get everything that I needed that was retired. I am not using it as much, and I don't really do many mocks anymore. But I actually at one point had my own Bricklink shop where I was selling on Bricklink as a seller, and that was a cool experience. I was slimming down and kind of refocusing my collection a little bit. So I had a lot of extra pieces because I was doing some mock building, and by extra pieces I mean I'm talking like 2,000 1x4 brown tiles, so that because I ballasted my railroad tracks and had a bunch of white plates for the winter village I had created. So I had used that to like resell some of those pieces as used. So
Hmm.
a lot of experience with Bricklink. One of my favorite things to do is just set up a wanted list on Bricklink. Kind of a good tip here for tips and tricks is that a lot of the stores have a minimum buy. So it's always nice to just have a wanted list of like stuff that you need or stuff that you want. So that if you're ever sitting in a store and you're like, I've got to make a $10 minimum buy because I need to get these couple pieces and they've got the best price on those pieces, then you just click over to your wanted list and see if there's anything from there. And that way you can complete that purchase as well. So that's my first tip here. Well, I'll kind of share some as we go along. But yeah, pretty vast experience with Bricklink, ranging from buyer of sets and minifigures to a actual seller and so on. So West, I've got some pros and some cons. Let's start with the pros. And the first one that I have
Yeah.
here is also a con, and that is everything. Literally everything. It can be very overwhelming. If you have trouble spending money on Lego because you do it more than you should, per se, it is probably not a good website for you because it can be a little overwhelming when you go there and you're like, oh, they have this, oh, they have this, they have this, they have this. I mean, it's if you've ever walked into a Bricks and minifigure and we're like, I didn't know that, I forgot that set existed, or I wanted this set, and you're seeing the sets on the shelf is like, oh gosh, I could drop 2 grand here. Bricklink's that
Hmm.
times 50. I mean, because literally
Yeah.
there's everything. There's never any stock issues for the most part, and so that's what I had for the first pro. Um, but what do you have for pros, West?
Um, I think it's just I think it's just seeing, like you said, everything. I'll just comment on that one, right? Like I think seeing everything has been really cool because, um, for example, I bought those Land Rover sets a few years from last year. Those little Defenders, the
Mm-hmm.
Creator Defender sets, which are awesome little sets, great little builds. But they're in that like flame yellowish orange, which is a really great color, featured heavily in like the new Construction series this
Mm-hmm.
summer, which looks wonderful. But like on a Land Rover, when you think of a Land Rover, I think of like I think of green. I think of different shades of green or like a light blue or something like that. And so I was like, hey, what can I recolor these? Some of the pieces are printed, so I can't recolor everything, but like what could I recolor? And I've been exploring that. And so what's cool with that is like you take the piece you have and you're like, well, is this made in dark green? And you can go and search the piece and just see whether or not it was made.
Yeah.
Now, there's an important distinction that Bricklink does, which is it shows you what it's available in, and then it shows you what it's wanted in. And wanted in is sort of a column that I just
Rookie
ignore
mistake.
because that just means that somebody's expressed interest in this color. It doesn't mean that
Doesn't mean
it's
it
an actual
exists.
color that's available. And usually you can see how rare the colors are based on the number of them that are being sold, right? And so you can if they're in single or double digits, that probably means it only came out in one or two sets. And so then you can start to put together like, oh wow, this is a really
That's
rare
why it's
piece.
$5
Or
for this one piece.
exactly. So I think that's just really cool to see. It's really helpful to then kind of decide like, am I gonna do this or not? And I just it's a really nice way to, I think, play around with that a little bit.
Yeah.
So having all of that information at your fingertips is really exciting.
So
Grinch, what other
the
pros did you
next
have?
pro that I have, and I'll run through a couple of these and feel free to add on, is competitive pricing. Amazon is terrible for buying retired sets. It is,
Hmm.
and I mean no offense by this, it is the lazy consumer's way of buying a retired Lego set. And Amazon, to be a reseller on there, there's a lot of fees. So when you're buying that set, you're paying for that fee for the reseller to make up that money. And then you're also kind of just buying in like the most competitive environment where there's the most premium because like I can just go my phone real quick and buy, that's where people are going to look first.
Mm.
So I never buy retired sets on Amazon. I always go to Bricklink or eBay for that. And usually Bricklink is in line with eBay. Sometimes you can find better deals on eBay because it's just West or Grinch or whoever selling a set because whereas Bricklink, you've got somebody with an established store. And some of these stores are just people at a house, and some of these stores are literal LLCs, right? I mean, they're actual functioning stores. Like I believe Atlanta Brick Co., which is now like the biggest Lego store in America, started on Bricklink. I don't know if that's 100% true, but they had a Bricklink store when they started, and now they've got their own thing, and they're a very big store, and they still have their Bricklink store. So competitive prices, and then also there's different price tiers, like you mentioned. If you want the used set and you want to save a couple bucks, that's a great place to buy a used set because it's got the inventory on there. So people who are selling on Bricklink are tend to be, and by tend I mean mostly, are that
Hmm.
person who's going to take the time to inventory the set because unlike buying on eBay, this website is purely meant for Lego. So if I go to buy Fort Lego Rado, for example, I'm buying it from a listing that has every single piece listed
Hmm.
on it. And the sellers are more inclined to say, "Hey, 99% complete. I'm missing this." But you don't have to worry about fraud or getting LEPin because you're buying, from a PayPal protection standpoint, you're buying Lego. You're on a Lego website, and what you're expecting that you're buying is Lego always. So there's some more protection that way. So
Yeah.
competitive prices, there's the inventory catalogs, like you talked about, from parting out sets to what minifigures came with the set to what gear came with the set to, just piece guides and like what colors are this piece available in. What's the most popular Lego color? What's the most popular Lego piece, right? You can have all that information on Bricklink in different forms of guides. And then the international market. Don't be afraid of the international market. Now, I do not necessarily buy anything from Asia. Normally, the customs clearing takes way too long. I've also heard some horror stories just about stuff coming out of Hong Kong where it's like somebody's got like 1,000 of something available, and it's like, where did they get that from? Did they just walk out of the Lego factory with that?
Yeah.
I've heard a couple of horror stories like that. So I do just tend to steer clear of Asia. Nothing against Asia. Just when it comes to buying Lego, I steer clear of Asia. But for example, Cloud City, I purchased on from Turkey because the U.S. market was way more competitive on that set. The cheapest one at the
Hmm.
time was like $600, and I found one in Turkey for the equivalent. There's a foreign rate fee of $350, and after shipping, it was $75 shipping. So yes, shipping was very expensive, but I got it for 425, and the cheapest one being sold in the U.S. was for $700 plus shipping. So Europe, I'm usually good with anywhere in Europe buying Lego sets from it. Bought a lot of stuff from Germany, um, a lot of stuff from Poland, believe it or not. So don't be afraid of using the advantage of the international market when and where it makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's something I haven't necessarily dipped my toe into the international market specifically. I will buy a lot of stuff from Canada. I have found sometimes the Canadian post takes a little bit longer. So
Oh, the
if you're
shipping's
looking to,
always longer when it's coming international than the U.S.
yeah, and if you're looking for something now, I would say, obviously getting it closer to you is certainly will make things easier. But what I would say is the prices are definitely more competitive, right? I know you have gotten some good deals on Lego Reddit and eBay, but you are taking, like you said, a degree of risk with that. Whereas this, it's self-reported, and the what I will say, what's really great about this community is that the sellers on the community, by and large, are generally very good about what they do and very sensitive to critique.
Hmm.
And so it's a rare day where if there's a mistake usually in your order, it's just that it was an accident. It wasn't, somebody trying to be nefarious. So that's always something that's really nice about
Excellent point.
Bricklink. And so that's something that's really cool to see. We talked about the price guides and the color guides because you're right. With the price guides, you can see how much the set has been going for to see, is this a deal? Is this not a deal? Usually things like if the box has been crushed, people will discount the sets. Sometimes if the box isn't important to you, you can get it for a little cheaper because they'll
Ship
sell,
it.
they'll
Yeah.
take everything out of the box and then ship it to you because it's cheaper for them. So there's definitely ways to kind of save some money too. And then just like when you look at the different conditions of stuff, right? You see people will mention like used, but it's like new, or they'll be like it's used with scratches and some cracks and stuff, which sometimes makes you wonder why it's being sold on Bricklink, but there's a market for everybody, right? So that's what's kind of
If you're doing
cool
a
with,
mock and you
with what's
just need a
going on.
piece, you can get it
Yeah.
cheap that way, right?
What's fascinating about this website is it's really just a commodities market. And so, Grinch, you and I have talked about like, you know, kind of just it's a really great model for supply and demand and scarcity and how all of that intersects with Lego pieces. And um yeah, it's just really cool to see. It's cool to see how when a new piece is reintroduced, like you mentioned, those sand green windows, like I'm sure the price for those just like dropped overnight as the market got
It takes a
flooded.
little long, a little bit of
Fair
time to
enough.
get them in,
Overnight might be a little bit of a liberal take on that, but it is exciting to see all of that play out in sort of real time. And so it's just I don't know, it's just from a perspective of like a longtime fan of Lego, it's just really fascinating to see pieces being commoditized in this way,
Yeah.
and so that's just fun to see.
I
So
remember I was
and
working on
fascinating.
a mock one time. Remember that bridge I made for my winter village? I made that like
Hmm.
suspension bridge thing. I guess it wasn't a suspension bridge, but I made like a pass bridge between a pass, and I wanted the reddish brown, 1 by 1 clip piece with the not the clip on the top, the clip on the side, and
Hmm.
specifically a horizontal clip, so it could hold something
Hmm.
horizontally, not vertically. And I wanted it in reddish brown, and so I went and I added like I don't know. I added I like 70 of them. I mean I was like one, two, I need two for each of these, and I had like 10 pillars on each side, on each half
Hmm.
of each side, so that was like 40 pillars total. So I'm like, okay, I need 80 of these clips. And it turns out the only time that piece was released was in the Rocket Raccoon Brickhead minifigure or Brickhead set. And so like one of them was like $9, and like no seller had more than like three ever.
Yeah.
So it would have been like
Yeah. It's
I did like the auto complete my cart, which is a feature that you can use if you have a wanted list where it'll be like, oh, I
mhm.
need all these pieces, or I want all these minifigures or all these sets. Like auto figure this out for me because there's tens of thousands of stores that you can go to. And so when you're shopping looking for a piece, it's just listing after listing. And so this is a kind of automatically generated way to be like, well, here's cheap prices for you. There you go. And it tries to
Yeah.
consolidate it into as few orders as possible. And it was like 20 orders for just the clips. And it was like gonna be like 600 something dollars. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
um, let's make that a gold accent. So I changed it to pearl gold and got 80 of them from one person.
Which is ironic that that was cheaper because that's a relatively rare piece too, or
Yeah,
color.
yeah.
What's just so funny about that is you just I feel like you're more surprised than not about like
Mm-hmm.
what pieces are expensive. And it's cool because this is sort of like you mentioned, this is a I'm sure there's a Lego archivist out there as part of the Lego group. But this is really just like a living archive of Lego and what is around at any given moment. And to your point too on data, they announced or when it was announced that Lego brought Bricklink, I was like, of course they did. Like this was the era of like, 2019 and 2018, that kind of time of like when data was sort of key prior to like AI. You can imagine I would place money on it that Lego is working on an internal AI algorithm
A
to kind
hundred
of
percent.
dissect this even faster
Hundred
than like
percent.
just sort of, whether it's like a what we call AI today, right? Like not true sentient AI or nothing that's going to complete the Turing test or pass a Turing test, but something that will, um, you know, certainly not like a large language model. That's not the application here, but machine learning, some sort of process to kind
Yeah.
of analyze like what Lego can do. What's interesting, right, is this information certainly helps Lego. But like, let's say you knew that that brown clip was expensive as a company. What would you do with that data? Because you don't own those pieces. So would you flood the market with more of them?
Potentially. Depends. I mean, that you don't get any. Well, I guess now they get money from the resales on here because there's like a 3% seller's fee.
Sure.
So, but like for these clips, where I'm looking
But
at the page right now,
yeah,
there's literally 26 of them for sale in the world of those brown clips. One store has 15 of them, by the way, and they're selling them at
nice,
13.58 a piece.
nice.
No, so yeah,
So
Lego
it
could,
just
it maybe it's a sign of like, hey, we need to get more of these pieces. Like maybe they've got a like wanted list to sales, chart to be like, okay, like
mhm,
what are some useful pieces that we can make, right? I think some of the interesting stuff is like sometimes you do find pieces that have not been ever released in official sets. For example, the jumper plate in clear that's never been released in any set ever. But
mhm,
Lego Masters can actually request the Lego group make them a certain piece in a certain color. The piece or the color has to already exist, but not the
mhm.
piece color combination, not the element combination. And so the Lego group will then go and make them, a batch of 10,000 of those pieces or whatever, and some of them eventually end up on Bricklink.
The open market.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? If I were to put on a tinfoil hat, I would suggest maybe that someone like the Lego group could take this data. For example, let's say they knew those brown clips were going for that much money. And let's say, for example, you had an internal store where you could also buy pieces from and ship them directly to a consumer. And you knew, for example, that that piece notionally went for $13 and some odd cents. I mean, you could sell them for 5 cents or $5 a piece online on your own internal store and undercut a market pretty significantly.
Well, you could,
Um,
but at the same time, just because they're for, I mean, we can go back to this
there needs
example
to be a
here.
demand, right? There needs to be there's in
In the
this case it's
past,
expensive because of a low supply, not
yeah,
because of a high demand.
in the past 6 months, 400 of these pieces have been sold.
Yeah, which is I don't think a ton, I would argue,
Right. I mean,
in the grand scheme of
in the
things.
past 5 minutes, 400 Lego sets were sold at $40 a
Right.
piece.
Yeah. So no, this is a bad example, but I would be curious
I
to
see
see
what
if
you're
Lego
saying.
could use yeah, and again, that's a tinfoil hat theory. So
And if you're
we can
ever mock building, it's always worth checking bricks and pieces and Bricklink because sometimes you can get it
yes.
cheaper on Bricklink, but you can't get the same quantity, right? You have to go to multiple
Hmm.
stores, um, versus bricks and pieces, and bricks and pieces takes like 2 months to get to you anyway. So
Sometimes, unless they're what are they? They split them up now, right? So on
Hmm.
bricks and pieces, you have the um, like favorited pieces or something like that, and so those ones actually get to you within a couple of days.
I think it
But
depends
the
too
ones
the
that are
pieces that are like where they're at, like what warehouse they're coming from, right?
no, if they're like the favorited ones, they will ship to you almost within 2 or 3 days.
But I think the favorited ones are the ones that they like
Oh,
keep a stock
potentially,
reserved and like
yeah,
because I think when
yeah,
I bought some stuff one time, it wasn't like well maybe it's one of their worst sellers and it came from Europe
yeah,
from their plant there.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Which will be interesting when they open up the new plant in Virginia,
yeah,
because then we'll have a local, and by local I mean on
we
this.
had one in Mexico already,
That's true.
but I don't know if it just because they have a plant there. Like the company I work for, we have multiple plants, but only certain products are made at
Right,
certain plants,
right.
right?
That would be
One
interesting
thing,
to see. I was gonna say it'd be interesting to see if there's like some pieces are only made in one spot.
yeah, I mean, it's just like color locking a piece, right? Like those mixel ball joints are
Yeah,
color locked. Like some pieces are probably it depends on the piece for sure, but my guess is for Lego, it's not as much about the pieces that are produced and more about what they're produced for. Because obviously
yeah,
the Mexico plant or this Virginia plant or the Europe plant all have to make the same Lego sets, but for like a bricks and pieces order where they actually have to hold an inventory or are not going to flow them right into sets, I'm sure that's an added complexity that that would be the differentiator
yeah.
is like how you're ordering the
Not
piece.
not only that too, but it would. I mean, I think good business, right? Like you would optimize your production so that like not every plant wouldn't produce the same amount of the same thing.
Hmm.
Like one plant would probably specialize in one thing and another
Yeah.
in another to some extent because the cost of shipping right now is relatively inexpensive to put it on a boat and send it across the world versus having to produce local, which although for a company like Lego who is trying to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and carbon footprint, maybe producing local is more of what they're trying to
Depends on
optimize
the
towards.
quantity you're producing too.
Yeah.
I
Anyways,
know,
that
like
is a whole nother discussion. But
with
yeah,
base plates, they co-man them. Somebody makes them for Lego
interesting.
and they brand
So it's
them
contracted out.
because they notoriously lost a ton of money on base plates because they were very like I don't know if it's the slow manufacturing process or what, but they were drainers for them. So they somebody co-mans them now and has been for
Hmm.
like years. That's not like a new thing. That's like for the
Yeah.
last decade
They
or
were a
longer.
loss leader.
Yeah. One
Interesting.
thing I wanted to go back to that you said to really summarize the pros of Bricklink here is you talked about the sellers and how receptive they are to feedback, and that's the nice thing about Bricklink is it's not just hey, I found this in my attic and I'm going to go sell it on
Hmm.
eBay. Or, yeah, somebody gave this to me as a gift. I'm going to go sell it. The majority of people that are here are Lego fans first and I mean everybody's a Lego fan first and foremost. And if you read like the story about me, it's usually like, well, I'm just selling some of the stuff that I don't need for my collection to fund more of my collection. So it's Lego fans at the end of the day. And the other half of the people are literally doing it as a business. This is their job. So there's a lot of love and care of my 563 transactions I've had on Bricklink. I've had one issue one time that I had to report to PayPal, and I've just there's always going to be bad apples, right? That's fine. Um, but I
Hmm.
got it resolved and didn't have any issue with it. So that's where I think I'll leave our pros. All right, so let's transition over to the cons, and we've kind of talked about a couple of them throughout the whole conversation. So I'm just going to briefly highlight some of those. The first, literally everything, it can be a little bit overwhelming, and it can be a dangerous place for an addict of Lego bricks to go because, I mean, literally everything. And
I
it's
just added stuff to my wanted list as we were talking.
oh, oh. gosh, I gotta go like update my wanted list tonight. Um, yeah, so I mean, it's I mean, literally, it's everything. And then it's not just like sets, so it's not even like the price barrier there in some cases because it's like, oh well, I thought that set was really cool, but I never got it because it's a $500 set. But if you thought one part of it was really cool, you can go and get that part. So if you like the animals from the Lego City sets, guess what? If you don't want to buy the whole set for $160, you can buy the gorillas for 10 or whatever, probably 20. Um, so yeah, the other thing is shipping and minimum orders. Now, as a seller of Bricklink, I defend minimum orders because if somebody were to order a 5 cent piece, it costs you money and time to go and get that one piece from your stock, take it to the, I mean, just to get the post office to come take it, right? Like, so you build that into your shipping fee, but the idea of a minimum order is just to say any order has to be over $10, right? Or something like that. So you'll see some
Hmm.
thresholds. Some of them are a little ridiculous. I'm not going to name any stores, but there's one store that likes to collect a certain item, so they try to corner the market in the U.S. in an item, and then their minimum order is like $50 or something. I think actually it might be 100. So unless like if you want that one piece, you have to make a large purchase from that store, which is kind of annoying. Um,
Ooh, I would like you to tell me what that is after
yes,
the
I
podcast.
don't want to like flame anybody on the podcast. That's not the point. But well, I might be wrong
I'm
on that minimum
intrigued,
order.
Grinch.
Yeah. There's two specific sellers that have cornered the market on two different items, and it's
Mm.
really frustrating because they're items I've purchased multiple times, and they have gotten my money a couple of those times. Um, but I wanted to talk about the user experience because before I said it's not Amazon, and that's a benefit, but it's also a con because you have to be a little bit more on top of your purchasing. It's not as simple as, you know, Lego Pirates of the Caribbean Black Pearl. If you do that on Amazon, got a listing right here, buy it. In this case, you have to go scroll through, right, and just double check. Okay, I want a new one. I want it sealed. You have to be a little bit more specific with your
Hmm.
purchasing. And that also sometimes means just giving the store terms and conditions a glance, right? Because you're not buying this from Bricklink, you're buying it from a seller on Bricklink,
Yep.
and every seller has technically different conditions. So, for example, they'll have a lot minimum, and a lot minimum or a lot maximum is where if you're buying a piece, each piece type, each element is considered a lot. And that way you're not buying 100 piece, one piece of 100 different pieces, right? Because again, it's from the time perspective. If I have to go find 100, I mean, that could take me an hour, right, to go find all those pieces for you. It could take me 2 hours to go find all those pieces. It's at least going to take me 100 seconds.
Yeah.
So that's some people do lot minimums. I get it, but it's just it. You read the description, right? People take the time to put a description, use that to your advantage, but it is a little bit more complex and a little bit more of a clunky user experience, albeit a very good user experience once you've done it a few times. It just takes, a little bit getting used to.
I think the pro of us having a lot of options, the con, right? If the double edge
The
here,
necessary
right,
evil.
is that it makes the website and just the process complex.
Hmm.
And so the gotcha that I think I find the most frustrating is you'll say new sealed in box or just new, right? And new doesn't mean what you'd think it would be, which is sealed in box.
Right.
New means new, no minifigures.
Right.
New has been taken out of the packaging but not assembled. So everything's put back into the packaging, but it has technically been opened. And you'll see every version or caveat with that. And sometimes like you'll see new sealed in box but no minifigures, and you're like, Well, that's not the same thing. Like
Right.
that is not, correct. And so you're like, wait, you said 100% complete, no instructions. Well, that's not 100. Like, where you can't just like change the range here and just be like, it's all there.
Right. Right.
So it just sometimes it does get frustrating, and it's really important to look
Now,
through
eBay can be that
those
way too.
comments,
And
and
that's
it
why it's
can. And
very
so,
important to check. If anything, this is a little bit more upfront because it's on every listing. When
yeah,
you're scrolling,
yeah,
unlike eBay, you have to click on the item and then scroll down, click description, and be like, okay, I'm good.
yeah. Which you, sorry, you commented that there's some time involved, and you can imagine as a seller, especially if you're just selling raw bricks, like the time it takes to inventory your
Mm-hmm.
selling collection and keep it updated, and
Like,
so I think
to
that that's
inventory it and then put your inventory on Bricklink takes a
right,
long time.
right. So it's not as simple as I think the buyer maybe perceives that it
Right.
is. So,
Right.
um, but anyways, Grinch, what else did you have for cons?
That was really it. I've
The
never
one,
been scammed on Bricklink. The one time I had an
yeah,
issue with the seller, I got my money back. Essentially, I bought a minifigure new. The minifigure came, it was damaged, it had bite marks over it. I wanted to return it. The seller said no returns, and I said this wasn't as advertised, so I'm going to open up a PayPal if I can't get a return. And then he accused me of trying to return a damaged minifigure I had in place of his new one. And he said, look, I took pictures of this minifigure before I sent it out. He said he does that for all of his minifigures. So I recreated the exact same picture at my house. And I said, I'm opening up a PayPal dispute. And then I recreated the pictures to show him your picture. Like, because he took it from a really weird angle where you couldn't
right.
see the
It
damage.
didn't,
And I'm like, yeah, I can't see
yeah,
the damage either. So I said, here's your minifigure. And I said, look, now can you see the damage? And I sent him the other picture. And then he finally was like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. If you're going to be difficult about it. I'm like, nope, I'm still going through PayPal because what if you say I never returned it at this point? And having
yeah,
PayPal as a intermediary there, what you do is you send your tracking information to PayPal. After you send it, that way somebody on PayPal's end will track it and be like, no, dude, he put it in the mail. It said they delivered it to your address. You're lying. So just at that point, I was so frustrated that somebody would even accuse me of doing that.
yeah. That's frustrating. I know we had
Again,
mentioned in the past
like,
we've had those issues with bricks and minifigs where they
right,
kind
right.
of were like, oh, why do you have to look at this? I have, I think, the Clone Arc Commando figure that I bought, and it had a cracked arm too. So like, it's very common for. I think they end up kind of replacing stuff too as they need to kind of make the figures more complete. So, um,
Mm-hmm.
yes, that is, which I mean you can do on Bricklink. So
Right,
that's not
right.
necessarily fraudulent.
Which
It
you
is
can
Lego
do for
after
your
all.
own collection as you curate it, right?
Absolutely.
I do
I
it
mean,
for
I could
capes.
see, yeah. It is funny, right? We've talked about this, and I know we're kind of getting to the end, and I'll share one con, which is that the colors don't match the Lego official palette. That's always kind of bothered me
Yeah, but it
because
makes more sense.
I would agree. I
I
agree with.
love, and even the way that they catalog the pieces
Oh
is
yeah,
different. The
the
Bricklink
fact that
catalog is
like
different than the Lego one.
the Bricklink just calls it dark blue, but you go to Lego and they call it like earth blue, and you're like, why do you have to make
Why do
this
you call this
difficult? Like,
Earth Blue? Just call it like it. Just call
call
it what
it
it
dark
is.
blue, right? Like, so it's interesting that they've made that
Yeah.
distinction. And sometimes when you're looking, especially if you're using like Bricklink as a resource, like I usually do, to then go buy stuff at Pick a Brick, which is what I sometimes do, like you said, because you can get stuff in bulk
Stone
sizes.
Gray.
Right. It's just, and you're like, I think I actually made a mistake with that with
Yeah.
facade pieces because I messed up the color. Which, okay, cool. I have more in one version of a color than the other. Big whoop. But
At least you
anyways,
don't have 100 baguettes. You have a
no, I do.
thousand. You have 1,000.
I do. Um, But let's wrap this up. And I had one final thing I wanted to comment on there, but I literally feel like I lost my. Oh, which is the one weird
We're
thing about
losing it.
Lego, right? I know.
We're losing
Is
it.
that with Bricklink, right? You can literally reassemble an entire set. I can then go and get brand new instructions. I can get a box, and I can get a sticker sheet,
Yeah.
and then I could literally go, "Hey, I have this set,"
Yeah.
and nobody could tell me otherwise. And I've thought about that a little bit as not a collector so much, but as just sort of an adult fan of maybe how like weird that is. But at the same time, that's Lego,
That's Lego though. That's the
right?
property, right?
And they're not serial, like the pieces aren't serialized in a way that can tell you that they all came from one set.
They
So
are,
let's say Grinch.
however, they are somewhat um, serialized isn't the right word, but there's different eras of Lego. So if you're a
Sure.
vintage collector, and I've noticed this a couple of times, they'll send you wrong pieces. Like for
Yep, I've had that
example,
happen.
it needs to have the old dark gray, and they send you new
Yep.
dark gray, and you're like, what the hell? And just bring it up with the sellers. Usually, it's an honest mistake, or for example, the old white picket fence piece, not the picket fence, but the old white fence with the bars on it. The original
Hmm.
ones have studs on just the left and the right side of the where there's normally four studs. The new ones have all four studs, but the original ones
Hmm.
had a tile opening there, a soft
Hmm.
opening between the two ends of it. And so
And
sometimes you'll
like you
get the
said,
the newer ones.
they're very good about correcting that.
Right.
So,
Usually.
but what's interesting about that, right, is like the way I sort of have rationalized this is, let's say you bought Grinch, you got the Pod Racer diorama this year, right?
Mhm.
You built it, one of the cats knocks it over. Yep, it's on
Probably
right on the
Theo.
shelf behind you. Yeah, so Theo knocks it over because she's a goof, and one of the pieces scrapes something and gets pretty marked up, and you're like, well, I don't want this on my diorama. Like, it's a
She would chew
diorama.
it because she's a cat and an idiot.
So let's do that. Let's say she chews it, right? Which we've had some heartbreaking Legos lost to chewing in
Uh-huh.
the past. But
Too
story for
soon.
another day.
Too soon.
Yeah.
Too soon. Lego
Looking at
clone
you,
troopers?
Imperial clone troopers or
Oh,
stormtroopers,
they were your
remember?
stormtroopers that had the printed belt on it from the Imperial shuttle. That's the only time those stormtroopers ever released, and they're super expensive now, by the way.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I think
Sammy.
all of them got chewed up. That was rough. Love. Anyways, if
you
you went down to your collection
uh
and you replaced the piece, and then you were
Is
to
that
go
an
and sell the
issue?
set
Yeah.
tomorrow, yeah, is that an issue? And I would argue no, it's not, because it's you're not falsely advertising that the set is complete, and nothing. There's no way to prove that those pieces didn't come with that set, right? And
Yeah.
so if it's a like for like condition trade out, then what's the point? And so I guess what I'm getting at is like I said, I rebuilt the detective's office and the brick bank modulars. I'm not going to list them as modulars for sale, but for me, they're the modular buildings, and I don't
Mm.
need to have the instruction booklet or the box to say that I have them, right? Like, it's just as good as having bought it for real. So
Right.
I think it's one of the cool things about Lego. I think it is a weird, maybe ethical dilemma. Maybe not even ethical, but just an interesting
I
thought
think it's just
dilemma.
it's an interesting would it be existential dilemma of like like because you
But
don't
as
know,
as
right?
right, as collections and as Lego, if what you're dealing with starts to trend towards being more collectible than not, right? That's when I think it gets kind of like interesting.
But that's when a
It's
true collector would only buy it new in box at that point.
right, exactly. And so if that's the money you want to pay for it, you're
Right.
you're going to pay for it. And we've talked
Right.
about that already. So let's wrap that up. Unless Grinch, you have anything else, but I think you had a couple other things you wanted to talk about.
Another aspect of Bricklink that cannot go unmentioned is stud.io or Studio. however you want to say it. But what it is a free Lego design software. And this is funny because it's something that Lego used to make themselves, Lego LDD, but then they
Mm.
stopped supporting it. So currently this is really the only thing in the market, and it's totally free. And it's just a 3D model builder of Lego that you can do on your computer. You can you can go ham and make a mock digitally, and then the coolest thing is you can actually link it to your Bricklink account and then go purchase those pieces so that you can actually make the mock in real life, which is a really cool touch. We're not going to talk a ton about Studio because it's really its own conversation, but that was from Bricklink. And you do have to be a little bit careful on it because you're just looking at pieces. You can put them in whatever color you want, so there's filters you can do to be like, only show me colors that actually exist in this part. And you can have that as just a default filter that's on so that you're not creating this big mock and then realizing half the pieces don't exist in that color. And then you can actually go through like line by line on it. It'll give you a price breakdown and be like, the first mock I ever built on it was like an old Winter Village log cabin. And I was looking at it, it was like 400, 500 pieces, but it was like 2 grand. And I'm like, what in the heck? And it was because I was using like some piece that was from the 70s that like in new condition, like there's only like 5 for sale, and I was using like 20 of them, and the 5 that were for sale were like $20 a piece. So so just be a little, again, you got to be, the more you have to put into these things, the more you get out from them, and there's a ton you can get out with
Mhm.
Bricklink and Studio. But what do you have, what's your opinion on Studio?
I like Studio. I've used it a couple of times. I usually just work it on my laptop, and I don't have a
Yeah.
mouse, so
Mm,
it's a little cumbersome on a
yeah.
trackpad.
Yeah.
What I have been trying to do is been recoloring the Lego Holiday Village gingerbread house and wanting to take away some of the gingerbread aspects of it and just see what would happen if you recolored it with like browns and stuff. But you have to build it from scratch. And so my
Right.
only big con with Studio is that you can't import Lego models, Lego sets as models, which would be easy to go
You
recolor.
can get somebody who saved it on a form, but then you have to download it from some form.
Yeah, I suppose there's that. Or if it's saved into the database because somebody has already created it. What you
Sure.
can do though is you can import every single piece, and there's a way to do that. And then in your like building area, you have all of the pieces, and then you just have to assemble it,
Yeah.
which is kind of an interesting thing. But you still have to then assemble it, and
Yeah.
that's again, if like with me and my single, no mouse trackpad
13 inch
laptop,
13
that's
inch
yeah,
MacBook.
yeah, my MacBook Pro. It's not as fun. I think it would be if you had a dual monitor setup where you could
Yeah.
have the instructions on one side, the builder on the other, and then like a mouse to kind of navigate, which
Which
would be
is
really
which is
helpful.
my setup. So if you ever need to do
Yeah.
that, buddy, I got you.
I do want to talk about the Bricklink Designer Program real quick, and I've actually been on it this week because there was a building that was featured that I thought was really interesting. It had an elevator in it that was kind of neat to see. But the Bricklink Designer Program is something that's been around now. Series 5 is what's currently sort of open. The other
Hmm.
series have been decided. Series 2 is the one that you can buy right now, which is kind of interesting. But, I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. It's like Lego Ideas, but even more control to the user and not
Yeah. A
Lego.
little
I
bit
did
looser standard
buy,
on some of these sets, and I don't mean like in terms of
yes.
quality. I mean in terms of
Well,
like
sometimes.
build technique, right? Like it's not gone through
Yeah.
it's not been redesigned by a professional Lego designer to Lego's
Hmm.
building standards. So might be a little bit more fragile, might be a little bit, less, productive in terms of number of pieces that are used optimally, stuff like that.
I did buy a set from JK Brickworks on there, and I did enjoy that quite a bit. It was the Pursuit of Flight set where the two airplanes were kind of
Hmm.
dogfighting, and it was that automatron. That was kind of fun. But other than that, I've seen some stuff that sort of piques my interest, but it never anything else that I've really wanted to go buy. I think the larger Lego community, there's been some stuff on there they're really excited about, but between that and something like Rebrickable, I don't,
Yeah.
the value and everything else, it's yeah, it is what it is. So you also have to sign up for there are limited releases, so if it's a really popular set, you need to get on ordering it as soon as you can, because there's no guarantee that you can get it afterwards. Although you could theoretically buy it used or,
Yeah, the
on the
scalpers
secondhand
scalpers get
market.
a hold of them. They usually sell out
Yeah.
within a couple of hours.
hmm So I think it's fine. I like Lego ideas because I like the fact that the designers put it through Lego's quality assurance kind of tests, and I think they do a really good job with that. And I think we've talked in the past about Lego ideas, about how like you can create a poorly designed tree with weird Winnie the Pooh minifigures, and Lego can turn it into something completely
Yeah.
different and just sort of blow it out of the water. Like, ideas doesn't have to be the polished model we all think they are. I think the lighthouse is another good example of getting that lighthouse in that scale was really cool, and that was not what was suggested in Lego ideas.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely some pros to what Lego Ideas puts together. But, Grinch, are there any other options for our listeners if maybe Bricklink is not something they want to get into, or maybe feels a little bit overwhelming?
Yeah, so the last thing I wanted to talk about was other options. And unfortunately, for the level of detail, there's not really another option. I mean, on Amazon, you can sometimes buy, a pack of pieces, but you're buying 20 blue 1 by 1 plates. I mean, that's to the extent, you can't go and buy 5 of these, 4 of those. It's more of like just somebody
Mm-hmm.
putting a pack of it together. The other website that's out there is called Brick Owl, and it's not as popular, nearly as popular as Bricklink. There's, gosh, in my experience, it's like, a quarter to the eighth of the sellers, if not more, usually. I don't have a firm number on that, but I just always feel like the prices are a little bit higher on Brick Owl. And then I also feel like there's just less sellers overall. So I've never actually even made a purchase on Brick Owl. And of course, your
I've
other
never even
options
visited it.
are Amazon or eBay. But it just depends on what you're buying, right? Again, you can't really buy,
Mm-hmm.
piece by piece what you want on those websites. eBay, sure, you can buy 1,000 bulk pieces of whatever, mixed pieces, but you can't go and buy 1,000 of the pieces that you specifically want, right? So it's kind of its own little niche marketplace, and it goes wide and it goes deep as far as what you can buy and do on the website.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we have here for our main topic today. You let us know in the comments, what's your experience with Bricklink? Have you ever bought anything on Bricklink? I love it. I buy a lot on Bricklink. In fact, next we're going to talk about what are we building, and I'll talk about Bricklink again.
What are we building?
All right, Wes. So what did you build this week?
I haven't built anything this week. It's been a crazy week, but I did finish the truck, and I don't think the Lego, the semi truck, the
Mm-hmm.
Lego store semi truck. I don't think I've talked kind of final thoughts on that model yet. So I'll just share. Put together, it looks really great. The side builds are fun. You have the little hot dog stand, and the hot dogs actually come in the tan color,
Yeah,
so
I
they kind of
saw
look like
that. Like
cooked hot
real hot
dogs and
dogs.
not the red ones. Which I'm like, why has it taken it this long for Lego to go with like the correct looking hot dogs? Which was kind of funny. But it's been it looks great. It's really cool set, and that's really all I got. Highly recommend you get it for $75 if you can from
At
Costco,
Costco.
not the $100 that it was on retail for. I do think that was
Is it
very
worth a hundred
overpriced.
dollars? Yeah.
I probably still would have bought it, but I I don't, now that I mean that's a good chunk of cash off
Yeah.
on that set. that value.
25% off.
Apparently, you could get it online at Costco, and it was like $80. So if you're don't have a Costco near you, or you have a membership or something like that, you can still get it there. I'd be curious to see too if like other box stores like Target would price match for that. Although I don't know how you would
Yeah, I
prove
don't
it.
know.
So
You'd probably have to have a picture of it,
anyways,
is my guess, because
yeah, and
yeah,
a date confirming,
right.
like when it was. So
I'm sure there's rules.
that was the building for that was great. It was a lot of fun. So that was what I built and put together recently.
Nice.
Grinch, how about you?
I have been doing a lot of yard work for the new house that we just moved into and staining my deck. So I haven't had a ton of time. I didn't actually build anything this week, but tonight is the night. I recently was on
Mm-hmm.
Bricklink looking to acquire a modular, and I ended up finding the seller that had every modular that I needed available, and they were the cheapest. I just checked the four most expensive ones, and that of the six that I still needed that I did not have. And of all four of those, he was the cheapest price in the market for all of them. And I was like, oh
Nice.
my gosh, hey, wife, I'm going to make a large purchase. I hope you're cool with that. She said yes. So I ended up buying the Green Grocer, the Market Street, the Cafe Corner, the Town Hall, Palace Cinema, and the Detective's Office. I got all of those on Bricklink from the same seller. I even worked out a little deal. I got another 10% off on that because I made such a large purchase. And so tonight I'm going to open the package and start going through them. I bought them used because, my God, it was already expensive. It was insanely expensive, even used. And I did not want to have to buy that all new because it would have doubled or tripled that price. And we are talking a lot of money here. So that's what I'll be getting into not only tonight, but all of next week. So I will have an update. He did let me know one or two of the white pieces had yellow on them. He's like, I don't know. They've been in these bags. They're just old. So he sent me a picture of all the white pieces and pointed it out. I mean, this is the type of communication that you can have on Bricklink. Again, Lego
Mm-hmm.
sellers that are fans of Lego, right? He sent me a picture of like all the white pieces and all the sets, and he was like, here are the couple that I'm talking about. And I was like, oh, I can replace those. Not a big deal. We're all good,
Yeah.
especially at the price he was selling it at. So that's what I'm getting into this weekend, or this
Well, that's
week.
really nice. Uh, really nice that he did that for you.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And my Baradur just shipped, so woo.
nice.
All right, brick mail.
Brick mail.
So, Wes, why don't you take our first brick mail from Mr. Eric?
Yeah, Eric emailed us again and said the Western theme was interesting to him. He said that was also during his dark years, and he never bought them. But he said he appreciated the level of detail that Grinch you provided on the video. So I'm sure kudos to you. And then he said that he thought it was funny when we kind of mentioned now that we have adult jobs with adult paychecks, we are able to go back and buy the things that we kind of wanted as kids. And so, yeah, that's definitely something that I think you and I both do. So, and then he kind of mentioned he had two more thoughts or two more kind of pieces to share, and one was he agreed that or kind of said that he didn't realize or trying to find a better way to paraphrase this,
It
but
wasn't inherently obvious when
yes,
seeing
that
the
it
sets in the
was,
market.
yeah. So he said the commentary about the sets not being cowboys and Indians was actually really insightful, as I had not thought about that. It seems to go along with the Lego modus operandi, which has always been nonviolent and minimal in regard to confrontation. And so, yeah, we were commenting last week on how it felt like because the waves were two distinct waves with the Lego Native Americans wave and the Lego Western wave, even though they were kind of under the same theme, they were very much designed so that they weren't necessarily in conflict with each other. which is interesting because then as the user, you could sort of pick to tell whatever story you wanted
Mhm.
to. I just think that says more about whoever played with the Legos than it does about Lego as a company.
You know how I
Um,
played.
Lastly, he asked how was the truck build, which I just sort of shared my piece to that. Which Eric, it was great. It was a little repetitive with the siding on it, but it was a really neat way to see it all come together. He said Grinch nailed it, 6 wide with added snot, and I'm going to push back and I'll say that yes, while that is correct, it ends up being exactly 8 wide because they used the sideways snot bracket pieces and then 2 plates, which is the equivalent of 1 brick
Mm-mm.
thickness.
Mm-mm.
Yes, it is.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
brick and a half. Or sorry, it's 2 plates and a half. It's not one full brick.
No, the snot sideways plate piece, the bracket piece,
Mm-hmm.
and 2 plates, or a plate and a tile, is the same thickness as a brick.
Nope.
Uh,
It's very
yes.
close. It's not though.
Okay, well, close enough that you can make it
Because
close enough
because
so that they more or less line up.
the bracket fits over a brick, right? So this
Yeah,
side of the bracket's flush, but the bracket piece itself is not a plate in height. It's the height
correct.
of a base
So
plate.
that
So if you were to
the
put
bracket,
mhm. if you were to if you were to put a brick side by side to it, starting at the base of that bracket side, it would be a little
mhm,
shorter. That's why Lego
I
makes there's the snot piece that's more of it's a modified plate. It's not a bracket. It just has it's like the 2x2, but then the one half of it is 2 plates tall and it's got the 2 snot bricks coming off of it. So you can get a plate flush on that, a brick flush on that, and not
yeah,
have that bracket
I
depth.
the bracket depth though is what makes it the same thickness as a brick. I'll we'll talk about this offline, but look at the
Do we need
Jurassic
another bet?
look at the Jurassic Park Explorer.
Do we
They
need
use
another bet?
a tile, a plate, and the bracket. It's not bracket piece.
Do we need another bet?
You're gonna lose that bet, Grinch. So
Okay.
what do we want to bet? I still haven't paid up for the last one.
I believe it's the same difference between a headlight and a headlight is like a negative bracket.
I know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you put a plate on a headlight, it's a little bit further out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What are we betting? Hmm. This is gonna end
Now
up. The results will end up on the
I
Instagram tomorrow.
I will say this. I think we are not. I think if you were to visualize what I'm talking about, you would be like, "Oh yeah." And so I'm curious. I'm afraid there's a miscommunication occurring here, but I'll leave it at that. But I'm gonna
If
put it
I need to
out.
huff some copium, I'll claim miscommunication.
Okay.
Um. Okay. No, I won't do that. I'll eat my words if I'm wrong here. But what are we betting?
Oh, I don't know. What
If
sounds good?
if I mean you already owe me the dual pack.
I
You want to
do.
just do a brickhead of our choice that's currently
A
for
brickhead
sale.
of. Okay.
Like a single brickhead. It can't, or if you do a dual pack, I'll cover the other half or something like that.
Okay.
Wait, but I already. Let me go to my. Hold on, since I'm gonna win, should I go to my Lego wish list
Oh,
here and figure out something I need?
maybe
Um.
we'll post it. We'll post it on Instagram. We'll post what we bet on Instagram, and then we'll.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm looking back here. What's in my immediate area? If I can just prove you wrong right after this, but okay. We'll post the results on Instagram tomorrow. But we're off topic. We like to bet on this podcast. Calvin W, our good friend Calvin, said, I really hope LEGO revisits Western. Me too, buddy. Me too. But they 100% won't go near Native American aspect again. And yeah, that's kind of like what we talked about of like, I think they would do something Native American, but it would be totally separate. It would be maybe more indigenous people and not
Hmm.
necessarily Native American. It could be something, Central American. It could be, something like Inuit people. It could be an indigenous Lego, theme if they were to do that. And I think it'd probably just be like a one-off icon set, like a, you know, Aztec temple or something like that. That might be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then Darman811 said, amazing video. So short, sweet, and to the point, but thank you. We appreciate the comment and wanted to give you a shout out on the pod.
Yeah. Jarman, thank you. I think that's your first comment on our video,
Mhm.
so or on one of our videos or podcasts. So appreciate it.
And that
All
is
right,
a
I
wrap.
figured out
Oh, pausing.
the Captain Rex microfighter
Okay, deal,
deal.
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 Results will be posted to our Instagram. And that is a
Yep.
wrap of another episode of AFOLs Welcome. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you are listening to this show. If you would like to write the podcast, please email us at afolswelcome@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at afolswelcome. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.